Hi and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be giving you book recommendations. These are all books that I think go very well when the weather gets colder and the leaves are falling outside and you're on the couch with a blanket and a warm cup of tea. So let's get started. The first category of books that we're going to start with is fantasy, because what season screams fantasy more than fall? Therefore, the first book that I'm going to recommend is Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. If you're a fan of Dungeons and Dragons or just in the mood for a cozy light stakes fantasy, then Legends and Lattes is perfect for you. This book is about an orc named Viv, and she has had enough of fighting and killing people, so she decides to start her own cafe. This book talks about all the struggles that she's dealing with, but also the friends she makes on the way. This book talks about the heartwarming atmosphere of the cafe and the smell of freshly baked cinnamon rolls and the warmth of friendship. Therefore, I think it's the perfect book to read in fall. Now, if you're looking for a book to read by the fire or just the 10-hour video of the fire on YouTube, I would definitely recommend Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. This book is a magical journey in itself. It really transports you to another world and I would highly recommend it. Also, if you're done with the book, you can watch the beautiful anime and that just feels like the perfect fall activity. This book is about Sophie, and she gets cursed by a witch and turned into an old lady. Then she meets Howl and his companions and they have all these crazy adventures, and this book is really about what is truly important in life, and it's so cozy and heartwarming, and the anime is just really beautiful, so I would highly recommend you read this in the fall. Another book that you can read with the movies is of course Harry Potter. Especially the first 3 movies are so heartwarming and cozy, especially the scenes where they're at Hogwarts in the Great Hall with the floating candles or in the common rooms with the fires. They're just so magical and fun. I love rereading Harry Potter and I think fall is just a perfect season to do that. The books bring me so much happiness and I think that's exactly what I need when the days are getting darker and colder, so I would highly recommend you read this in the fall. The next book I had the absolute pleasure of reading for the first time this year, and it is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. This might be the most magical book I have ever read. It truly feels like you're in the book with the characters. The descriptions, from the colors to the smells to the feelings, is just so well done. There are even chapters where you as the reader are invited to the circus, which feels very unique to me. So The Night Circus is about 2 magicians who are bound to battle each other in a magical competition. This competition takes place in a circus that is only open at night, but strange things start to happen to the circus and the people inside of it. I won't say more because it's for you to find out, but I would highly recommend this book. The next book I still have to find out for myself. It's The Ex-Hex by Erin Sterling. I haven't read this book yet, but I've heard so many great things about it. I've heard this book is about Vivian, who curses her boyfriend, and they break up, which I totally understand. But then he comes back and strange things start to happen in town and they have to solve it together. It sounds like a very cute book for Halloween with witches and curses, and it's definitely on my TBR for the fall. Then for the last book of the fantasy section and the first of the classics, of course, I have to recommend The Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux. I love this book. I think I've read it 3 times now. I just think it's so incredible. It perfectly combines the dark and the gothic with a lot of humor, and the setting of the Paris Opera House is just so beautiful. So if you haven't read this book, it basically follows the Phantom, the ghost of the Opera House, who goes around collecting rent, and he really takes a specific liking to the lead singer. So if you haven't read this classic, I would highly recommend that you do so this fall. The next classic that I absolutely loved this year was Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. Rebecca is about this unnamed protagonist who falls in love with a man who has just lost his wife, Rebecca. And when they get to his big estate Manderley, she realizes that Rebecca may be dead, but her ghost is definitely still haunting the building. This book is again dark and gothic and focuses around a beautiful building. I loved it, especially the commentary on the 2 women. Our protagonist remains unnamed, which was very interesting to me, and it was just such a fast-paced read, and I really want to read more of Daphne du Maurier, but if you haven't read Rebecca yet, I would highly recommend you do so. While we're on this track of beautiful gothic buildings, I'm going to recommend to you Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen. This video would not be complete without me recommending you a Jane Austen book, and Northanger Abbey is definitely one of my favorites of hers. We follow Catherine as she kind of debuts her way into society, and she's very naive and has read gothic books, which makes her believe that everything around her is a setup, is kind of a parody on the gothic, which again combines the dark and the eerie with sense of humor and a beautiful building, which is completely what I look for in a book. Apparently I just really enjoy dark humor and beautiful buildings together. So Northanger Abbey is the location of this book, and I would love to visit there sometimes. It sounds like such a beautiful place. Yeah, I would highly recommend this. Now, I cannot recommend Austen without also recommending the Brontes. So for the fall especially, I would recommend Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. This book is a classic for a reason, because it contains so many flawed characters and complex relationships. The setting is also really beautiful. It has a lot of rain and nature, and it's definitely dark and eerie, but I really enjoyed it. The storytelling may seem a little strange at first, but once I got through that, it was a lot more enjoyable. So this is a great book for the fall. The next classic is also dark and eerie, and it is Macbeth by Shakespeare. I know Shakespeare may sound a little intimidating, but in my opinion, Macbeth is a really approachable one. The story is just filled with witches and darkness and murders, and I think it's just perfect for fall. I last read Macbeth in high school, and I would really want to reread it. I think I would just get a lot more right now that I have more reading experience under my belt and just a bigger grasp of the English language. So I really want to reread it, and I would highly recommend you read Macbeth as well. I would recommend you read any Shakespeare, but I feel like Macbeth is just perfect for the fall. Now, this cannot be a fall recommendations video without recommending Dracula by Bram Stoker. Vampire stories just scream Halloween and fall, and this is the classic vampire story. If you're looking for young adult vampire books, there's of course the Twilight series by Stephenie Meyer. I'm not sure if I would recommend that per se, but I would definitely recommend you read Dracula. This book is just so interesting, and it's definitely the blueprint of vampire stories. I think October is just the perfect time to read this book. Now, the last book before we move on to the scary book section is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. As you can see, I'm currently reading this book and I'm really enjoying it. Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. If you want to read it along with me, you can pick it up this fall. It is about magicians in England who are trying to find practical magic, and it's a different kind of magic. It's dark magic. It is used to compete with others, to solve murders, and to resurrect people. So it's definitely a dark book. It's a spooky book. It's full of ghosts and mysteries, and I'm really enjoying it. This book is dark, it's fun, it's also a long read, but you'll have a lot to read. But it's definitely a recommendation from me, as I'm really enjoying it right now. Then we move on to scary books, and the first book I'm really looking forward to reading so much that I loaned it from the library, and that is The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. The library code is on the front, so I've covered it with a sticky note, but I'm really excited to read this book. Supposedly this book is about 4 people who go to investigate Hill House because it is said to be haunted. It is a horror book, so again, dark and spooky, which I think is perfect for spooky season. I can't wait to read this book. I feel like it's a very good read for Halloween, and I'm really looking forward to picking this up. Now, there is another book by Shirley Jackson that is just perfect for this time of year, which is We Have Always Lived in the Castle, which is again about a haunted building, but this time about the people inside of it. The family is very strange and they carry a lot of mysteries. So this book is full of intrigue. It is again a horror book, so it's perfect for Halloween. You can also have a Shirley Jackson marathon because both of her books have been adapted to movies. So you can read the books and watch the movies, and I think it's going to be a perfect fall night. You'll just have such a spooky time. So yeah, that's The Haunting of Hill House and We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. Then the last scary book that I'm going to recommend to you is The Turn of the Screw by Henry James. This book is on my October TBR. I'm really looking forward to reading it, and just look at the cover. That just looks so scary to me already. This book is about a woman who goes to take care of 2 little children, and the house is supposedly possessed and the children are perhaps also possessed. I don't know much more because I'm trying to go quite blind into this book. It promises hauntings and ghosts and possessions, so I feel like it's the perfect spooky book, and I can't wait to pick it up this month. The next category is mysteries, where if you're looking for a spooky book but not necessarily horror, I think you would love a mystery. So here are the mysteries that I think would be great for this season. The first that I'm going to recommend is The Secret History by Donna Tartt. This book is a dark academia that follows a group of students and their teacher, and they study the classical studies. This book contains a murder and mystery. Let me read you the first line. The snow in the mountains was melting, and Bunny had been dead for several weeks before we came to understand the gravity of our situation. That sounds so intriguing to me. I've read it already, but I would love to reread it. It's been a couple of years. This book is a dark academia featuring a murder and a mystery. I would not say this is a cozy book. It's definitely more of a serious one, but I would still highly recommend it. Overall, I think dark academias just go perfectly in the fall. Another dark academia that I read this year was A Study in Drowning by Ava Reed. This book is perfect for the season because it features a mystery, it features fae, a lot of rain, a lot of wind, there is no sunlight inside. A Study in Drowning is a young adult book about a girl who is in architecture school, and she is to design a mansion for the son of a famous author that just passed away. I feel like the world and the plot is just so interesting. The vibes are definitely perfect for this season. As I said, a lot of rain, a lot of wind. I feel like it's still a cozy book because it's young adult, which makes it really fun for the fall. Then a dark academia book that I really want to read is Babel by R.F. Kuang. This book I believe is set in Oxford, and it screams dark academia, and I feel like it's very fitting for the season. I feel like the book also has a lot of dark undertones, which I think go perfectly for this time of year, and it's just very high on my TBR. I've read Yellowface by R.F. Kuang and I really enjoyed that book, so I'm really looking forward to reading more of her books. Babel is definitely high on my TBR. It sounds like a perfect book for me, set in England with a dark academia aesthetic. That sounds like something I would really enjoy. So Babel is definitely perfect for this season. Then the next book is also a young adult, and I read this last month and I really enjoyed it. That's why I'm recommending it to you. And it's The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. This book is about Blue, which I thought was a questionable name at first, but I've grown to like it, and Blue is the only one in her family who does not have a psychic ability. So Blue meets the Raven Boys, which she despises at first, and they have to figure out a mystery. I really enjoyed this book. I felt like the Raven Boys were very unique. They each had their own character. Also, the female characters in Blue's family are so unique and enjoyable, and I really feel like these characters are very, very well done. I would really recommend you read this book just for the characters alone. There are 4 books in the series, so you'll have a lot to read this fall. The next book that I would highly recommend is Arsène Lupin vs. Sherlock Holmes by Maurice Leblanc. This book just makes me laugh when I think about it. It's definitely a cozy mystery. As you can see by the title, it's Sherlock Holmes, the detective, versus Arsène Lupin, the burglar, and they find each other head to head in a battle of cat and mouse. This book is just so fun and enjoyable and very surprising at times, so I would highly recommend this book. Because it's so cozy, I think it would be a perfect read for fall. Actually, I would recommend you all Arsène Lupin books. I have a couple here. I would recommend all Arsène Lupin books. They're such cozy mysteries for in the fall. But yeah, this one is definitely my favorite. In that same vein, I would recommend all Agatha Christie's, but especially And Then There Were None. I read And Then There Were None this year. In the same vein, I would recommend all Agatha Christie books, but specifically for this video, And Then There Were None. I read And Then There Were None this year, and I really enjoyed it. I feel like it really has those fall mystery vibes. Of course, all Agatha Christie books are mysteries, but for example, The Mousetrap is really set in winter. There's so much snow in that book, whereas And Then There Were None is not specifically related to winter. I read it this year and I really enjoyed it, so I would highly recommend you read that as well. And Then There Were None is about a group of people who go to an island, and there they find out that they are stuck on the island, and one by one they start dropping like flies. So it's definitely not as cozy. It's definitely more a adult mystery book, but I would still highly recommend it. So I don't know how many times I've said highly recommend in this video, but I do really recommend these books. I think they're so perfect for fall. Let me know in the comments if you're planning to read any of these books, or if you have any fall book recommendations for me. I would love to hear them. So for now, I just want to thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!